sandwiches as well.
Thank you. Wait, you know what? We will start. Let's start with our original programming, which is this will be a live section of our podcast. So Anna is thank you. So Anna have done a lot of amazing things in her career. Why don't we start with, what are some early career lessons that you've taken before becoming the VP of Google, before funded the Gradient Ventures, and before funded your current company, Ceramic?
Wow, early lessons. I would say some of my early advice when I was having some of my first jobs were to, maybe this isn't that popular now, but to kind of take a day a week and stay late that day a week and actually learn from people in like more unstructured time. Even by the time I got to Google in 2003, there were already these kind of homework exercises, like here's how to use Google infrastructure, and here is how to run jobs, and you could check your output sort of like going to school, and they were called code labs. And so like in your day-to-day life, it was not that easy to be like, yeah, I'm not going to do anything, I'm going to be doing code labs. So I just try to find pockets of time to learn, and that way you could kind of get up to speed faster.
Totally. I feel like, okay, what is code labs again?
Code labs it's like homework problems,
but
okay. In industry, to say, here's like a problem set, here's a data set, here's how to run something on a set of machines, here's the output you should get. So they were very much like homework problems, but to actually use the technology of the infrastructure.
Very interesting. I wonder, so like what made you be passionate about technology?
Mm-hmm. Well, this is sort of an accident. I was in high school, and like a lot of high schoolers, maybe didn't love living at home. And I was thinking about what major to do in college. And my next door neighbor, who was studying art, which was another thing I was thinking about doing, she moved back in with her parents after undergrad. And I was like 17, and I was like, I'm not doing that. What else am I interested in? Yeah.
I'm glad you found the path to technology. And I guess like who is on your personal board of advisors?
Wow. It depends on who I'm calling about what. I think that some interesting things happen in serendipity in life. I once interviewed this billionaire. He was a famous CEO. I interviewed him to be CEO of my previous startup. And as I was interviewing him, instead of interviewing him, I started recruiting him. And he goes, no. You need to interview me and decide whether you want to hire me, and then I'll decide whether I'm going to take the job. And so it was kind of funny how he flipped things. Of course, he flipped things, and then he's remained an advisor. And yeah, a lot of people from early days in my career, we kept in touch. We'd go to lunch quarterly. It doesn't sound like a lot when you first commit to it, but sometimes, we have to miss a quarter. And then we kind of wind up going through our careers together, where sometimes I'll give advice and sometimes they'll give advice. So it's good.
Now I just wonder who that billionaire is. Maybe it's the same billionaire who told me about your company. So maybe we could dive into what is Ceramic.
Oh yeah, Ceramic, we're an early stage startup. We just came out of stealth, I guess a month ago. And what we've been public about so far is some of the things that we've built. We have built a very, very efficient way of making large language models like same math, but for like really long context, it winds up being a lot more efficient than the open source stack. And then we have like a number of innovations that are coming down the pike for speculative decoding and for new norms and things like that. So we'll be blogging and publishing that work. So it's really exciting times, and yeah, I guess
Exciting.
watch this space. Yeah.
I guess, how do you think about as a founder? So like, prior to that, you were the VP of Google.
Yeah.
And then prior to that, you're an investor. So how do you think about building a company from
Yeah.
maybe product, the technology mode,
Yeah.
hiring the team?
Those are hard questions. I will say the previous VPs on the panel, previous investors, I think, they talked a lot about differentiation. And so if you're going to go into enterprise, it's kind of like, what are the use cases? Why are you going to be better than some of the good points they made than somebody coding up over the weekend? And how are the techniques that you bring to bear really different? So I think, one thing for us is that we actually invent a lot of things. I think the future kind of belongs to the inventors rather than people who are taking things off the shelf. And then, secondly, we're big system builders. One of the first things I shipped was, at Google was on, 6-figure number of machines. And so I think when you're, used to that scale of deployment, it kind of makes you think differently. So we definitely think in terms of like large system rollouts, long uptime, easy to use, easy for SREs, et cetera. So there's kind of a whole set of things that we think about. In terms of hiring, we have started with pretty much just senior people. And then we're gonna bring on in like cohorts. So gonna have 6 people all starting the same day in June, so that we're not constantly onboarding people at our small company. So, yeah.
Tell us more about like, how do you think about what are some tools that you're using as an engineer, as a founder of a company?
Yeah, I do think it's interesting from other companies that I've started. There's definitely more tools I use now than in my previous companies. I probably used maybe ADP for payroll, and that was almost it. There was, no AWS for when I was doing Cool. We had to do all of our own data center stuff. We racked our own computers. We took out our own trash, which we still do. So I do think like there's a number of, other startups that we rely on. Probably everybody in a small company might use Gusto, they might use something else, but we use pieces of software like that. Of course, like some of the people use VS Code, which has like AI involved in writing code. But definitely our list of software packages for a tiny company, of course we use GitHub and weights and biases, So yeah, but I think our list is maybe 20 long, which is surprising.
Maybe since you mentioned about the 6 people on your team, so how do you think about who to...
There's 6 people coming. We have about 12
Right.
people now.
Yeah. I guess like, how do you think about, you mentioned about you guys hire a lot of senior people. So
Yeah.
how do you think about like constructing a team in the world of AI?
Yeah, I think one of the things that that we're thinking about is kind of like the buddy system. So if you have a senior person, you can have a more junior person. If you have a mid-level person, you can have either pair them with a senior person or a junior person. And then also for engineering, typically I try to give people like a fun task and a not so fun task. So they always have like, a part of their brain is working on the harder fun task, while they have to get their unfun task done as well.
What is the harder fun task?
Well, we're doing, we're taking a set of papers. So right now we're taking a set of papers about various norms being used for large language model training. And, academic papers aren't always like, completely reproducible. So we decided to take a set of data a size model and then like try out all these norms. And so that is super fun for the team. So they've kind of picked off, okay, I'm going to read this paper. It's going to be code reviewed. I'm going to implement it. It's code reviewed by this other person. We're going to try it. And so I have like a little, science team going, testing all the different things, and then like making riffs on them. It's a really fun vibe.
I wonder, so when you are thinking about go-to-market, since we chat
Yeah.
about the product side,
Yeah.
the team side, when you're thinking about go-to-market, how do you think about who will be your essential buyer, and then
Yeah.
how do you think about the entire go-to-market strategy?
Yeah, I think that we have two strategies. One is through channel partners. I'm sure a lot of startups have this. We have a partnership with Lambda, and so when they're selling a training cluster, they mention our solution as well, and we do a co-sell. And then we also go direct to customers that have kind of like a lengthy workload in a workflow, and then we're just defining kind of what they need and how our end-to-end solution is kind of right for them.
How do you think about, I guess, since we talk about, you mentioned about like the channel partnership side of things.
Yeah.
How do you, I guess, identify, like judging the result from these different partnerships, and maybe we could also leverage some of your experience as an investor. You have seen a lot of startups while you were investing. What are some, I guess, like interesting ways that you were seeing in the AI space when it comes to go-to-market?
It's kind of interesting. I think that there is serendipity in the world of running into potential customers. As you guys know, like a few weeks ago, there was GTC, and at first I was like, really, 4 happy hours in one night, So I kind of took a strategy of actually attending them all, and actually I've had a lot of follow-up and stuff. So I think there's no substitute for good networking. And then I think channel partnerships, it needs patience, and it's kind of about relationship building, and it takes time. And so I think because I was at a big company for a long time, I'm kind of chill with creating a relationship that will blossom over time, and so. And how you judge a relationship, I mean, you kind of continue working with them if you are aligned on the roadmap and you like working together. I mean, it is kind of like them hiring you because they could otherwise partner with another startup, or they could build inside. And it's you wanting to work with them too. So with all this life as an LLM, I mean, there is actually an element to it, yeah, for sure.
I want to switch gear a little bit. I know that people are hungry. I want to keep the conversation interesting. What are some AI trends that you think should be canceled?
Oh, AI trends that should be canceled. Wow. I like so many of the AI trends. I know that people were very excited about agentic things, and I did see some funny blogs that were like, I've seen all kinds of agentic trends, all the way from things that were deep to things that were 3 APIs and trench code. So I thought that was hysterical. To call APIs three APIs in a trench code, to call that patience. But I do think there's something deep and fundamental going on there. I guess one of the things I would love to see canceled is the fear. I think one of the investors earlier said, in every technological innovation, there has been this fear. There was actually a fear when probably typewriters came out. There's probably a fear when PCs came out. And then you look at historically, like every family had to have a spinster, basically somebody who spun thread, and then they weave that to cloth. And if you didn't have those people as part of your family, you didn't have cloth. Huge investment on behalf of every family to spin thread and make cloth, and that did go away. I guess Industrial Revolution, dark satanic mills, and all that. But that kind of freed people, and I'm not sure if there was a fear factor because I wasn't alive then, but I can imagine there was.
I guess, how do you think about AI like will play in the next 10 years? Because I feel like you're a very early on AI believer.
Yeah.
And I don't even think right now we're at the hype of AI yet.
Yep.
But how do you think about the AI cycle, and then what is the future of AI in the next 10 years?
Yeah, I guess I remember when the web was born, and there was, huge hype around it, but a lot of unknowns in the beginning. And actually, it changed things a lot more than we thought it was going to do at the time. And then cell phones came out, so I got to be part of cell phones. I was the 90th employee in Android. So when cell phones came out, they changed things dramatically, and we really underestimated, I think, the change cell phones were going to make. And to me, AI is going to make a lot more changes. And I think that's because fundamentally, some of this technology is very, very capable. And I think Jensen said at the Mistral conference about a year ago that a large language model is like a fresh undergraduate grad, you know? And so I'd add my snarky end, which is yes, very capable, but knowing nothing about your business. And so I think that's where there's a gap between large language models and enterprise.
Totally. I wonder, so I guess in the vertical AI aspect, what are something that you feel like are having longevity?
In vertical AI, I mean, some people have built models to understand things in the legal realm. I know that Bloomberg made an early model for finance, and they're about to rev their model. So one of the things about longevity is that data moves on, and it takes a while to collect and clean the data. Then it takes a while to train the data, and then you check all the guardrails and stuff, or you check that it works in your application, and all of that takes time. And then, if you're like Bloomberg and you launch that model, well, that model is going to know nothing about tariffs, for instance, and so there are effects in the world. There's work product being made, and so those models have to get refreshed. And I think when people aren't really thinking about that, because we just have, Bloomberg who launched that one model, and now they're going to refresh it, and so we're just getting to some of the refresh cycles. But so that's why I wouldn't say that they have longevity.
I wonder, since we talked about defensibility in the last panel, how do you feel like startups should build defensibility? Since you have worked at the large companies,
Yeah.
and now you're running your own company.
I think that, really, thinking about differentiation, like what can you do on your platform or with your technology that you can't get anywhere else? Or what problems are you solving that no one else is solving now? And then how hard is that problem to solve? But sometimes not everything has to be rocket science. There are some things where you get first mover advantage, or you get really embedded deeply in an organization, in a workflow, that's just going to make it, sticky and kind of hard to, to take out your software. So I think those are some of the strategies to think about.
I guess since you just started becoming a founder, what's your day-to-day like as a founder?
Oh, my day-to-day, well, it's chaotic, which is fun.
I feel you.
Yeah.
Like today, but yeah.
I've started being more organized. I've started color coding my calendar.
Oh, wow.
So that I can see okay, here's a potential customer meeting. Here's an interview that I'm doing for, for candidates, and here's internal kind of work, and then putting work that I have to do in order to meet and prep for a potential customer kind of on my calendar. Otherwise, kind of all the time is gone. And that really happened since we came out of stealth. So we were kind of lucky, maybe slow news day, but we did get a significant inbound. Yeah.
I think we had a private chat about this, but I wanted to ask you about like, what's your thought on picking the great investors? Because you were an investor yourself before.
Yeah.
And what are some, let's call it like the 3 traits that you pick on
Yeah.
when you're choosing an investor?
Well, it's interesting because I think a lot of first-time founders would be shy about doing this, but like meeting investors when you're not raising, like pretend you're raising, it's super whirlwind. Pretend it's going to go well, first of all. Then if it's going to go well, you're going to get more than one term sheet. It's going to be like a whirlwind, and then it's like hard to sort through all the conversations and then how you're feeling about each person. So like kind of meeting them either in a warm-up phase or like an off-cycle phase. So you actually kind of see them in a calm way. You kind of weigh your personalities, how you might work together. I think that's good because, you know, you meet people, let's pretend people do a raise in like a 2 or 3 week, you know, crunch time. Yeah, you're really picking somebody you're going to be working with for 10 years, or at least the firm you're going to be working with for 10 years in like this really compressed cycle. Definitely, since you're going to be working with them 10 years, your happiness is your happiness. It's paramount. I would take people that you get along with. And if you have like a vision, like a short-term vision and a long-term vision, I would aim towards the people who believe in the long-term vision. And yeah, those are the 2 major things, and then the one process thing that I think is worthwhile.
Sorry.
Yeah.
What is your long-term vision for Ceramic?
Yeah, so the thing is, even though we're out of stealth for part of our stuff, we're not kind of out of stealth for some of our long-term vision. I think that you know, we do see a lot of opportunity in the future, and one of the reasons we started with training is to really understand all the cool knobs that we could play and interesting systems that we could build in inference, and how those might evolve from the inference we see today into kind of inference systems in the future. So we'll definitely be talking more about that with use cases that we unveil.
Since I want to bring back to the big company strategy part,
Yeah.
since back in time you were the VP of Google, so how do you think about where the big companies are making bets in terms of the AI strategy?
Yeah, I will say I think some people in the earlier panel talked about, you know, OpenAI and Anthropic in the consumer space. I think when I back up to 10,000 feet macroeconomically and see Amazon, Google, Microsoft investing tens of billions each into data centers, when you add up all that money, it adds up to $1,000 for every person living in the United States. And that is not for consumer play. You don't make that kind of investment for consumer play. That has to be for enterprise play. And so that's where I a little bit disagree. This level of investment really means that that all of those companies see an upcoming in enterprise adoption.
Since like I think the investors also mentioned that, like you mentioned, like they are a lot of the big enterprises are investing in everything AI. What do you think have longevity?
I think so. You know, a lot of times, like the frontier models, they do push the frontier. That's why they're called frontier models, and they do better at, let's say, coding competitions or AMC math. You know, and AMC math is very difficult. You know, these math competition questions are difficult, and but when you think about companies, if you're going to be honest with yourself, even a super high-tech company, how many people at that company are good at that task? And that might be an indication of actually where you need models to get better by looking at what are the tasks that people in the company are performing, where do they like offshore tasks, what level of person is doing what task, and then that is a way to, I think, look for opportunity.
For sure, I really like that. I feel like you should always identify where you are spending money, where you are spending your human resources into, and then decide on how to leverage AI to improve efficiency in that sense. Since we're about to
A lot of the manual processes are often these tip of the iceberg processes. Like, let's say you're checking something, you're actually only spot checking. So, when an audit firm comes into your startups at some point, they're going to spot check. They don't check everything. And so some of these manual processes that are spot checking, well, it would be great if it was actually AI checking and then the human spot checking. You're going to have a lot more coverage. So it's not that AI is going to replace, it's going to make it better.
Totally. I want to be mindful of time because it's
sounds
between
good.
us and pizza. But quick 1 minute fire round. What's your favorite book?
Oh, God.
Sorry.
I read really, really not highbrow things. I guess the book that my daughters really were all excited. I have 3 girls. I have a boy and 3 girls. We all read the Fourth Wing series together. So the last book I read with my daughters was Onyx Storm, which is the 3rd book in the Fourth Wing series. Fairly embarrassing, but real.
Who made the biggest impact in your career?
Interestingly, I think when we go back to like my high school days of the person coming back to their house, my chemistry teacher encouraged me to apply for a certain scholarship. There's a scholarship at Washington University in St. Louis that you take a sit-down exam, and if you score the top 4 on the exam, you go to school free, and it's in engineering. And so like her suggesting that I take that exam changed my life.
Who would you invite to your lunch party? Instead of dinner party, let's do lunch party since we're here at lunch.
Who would I invite? I'm easygoing, man. If anybody wants to come to a lunch party with me, I find people insanely interesting. And I was just at a conference last week where there were astronauts there, people who invented new supersonic plane engines. I was at a breakfast this morning with the chairman of NTT, and met serendipitously a lot of founders in Silicon Valley. It was over in San Francisco before this. So I don't have a specific, if you were trying to get me to say a specific person I was dying to meet, I love meeting people.
Love that. You are going to meet all of us here today. So, well, Anna, thank you so much for coming on to our live podcast with me. And everyone else, let's grab pizza together.
Nice.
Everyone, as they're taking their photo, feel free to grab sandwiches,